Excellent. Well, good morning, everybody. Welcome to KG Protech's instructor webinar dedicated to automotive instructors. My name is David Gazelle with EdTech Global. It's my pleasure to introduce you to George Homolaj, CEO and founder of KG Protech. Now, before I give the mic to George, a little more background on KG. About a decade ago, George founded the company, and the focus was on developing the KG Test and Train fault simulation system. And in that, you can hear about that today and see examples of how it actually works today. But in this time, they become the leading pioneer in remote and simulated practical training for automotive technicians around the world. And now we're excited to bring this technology to North America. Now, after today's presentation, I'll make sure I send each of you a link to the recording in case you missed parts of it. Also, a link to where you can request more information so your rep, your local sales rep, will walk you through how the KG system might fit into your program. And now for some housekeeping. Thanks for muting your line when you're not chatting, but feel free to come off mute and ask questions directly to George or I. Be happy to take your questions throughout the show. Also, you're welcome to post them on the chat, and we'll take some breaks throughout the session to make sure we're tracking your questions and answer them at some point during today's show. And now it's my honor to welcome to the stage, to the virtual stage, George Homolaj, CEO and founder of KG Protech. George.
Thank you, David, for the warm welcome. Hello, everybody. Thank you for joining us today to this webinar. I'm excited to share more information with you about what KG is all about and what our technology can do for you. Now, let me try to share my screen with you. Perfect.
Got it.
Yeah, so basically, our mission at KG is to make your life as an instructor easier. We want to help you when it comes to setting up faults on your vehicle, when it comes to bugging your vehicle for diagnostic training, because we know that today this is still a very complex and cumbersome job. There's a lot of manual work involved. You need to cut wires, you need to implement switches, faulty parts. So there's hours and hours that go into preparing your vehicles for your learners. And we want to shrink that, make these hours actually a few minutes, if not seconds. So really take the hassle out of this job, automate all of these manual work, manual jobs that you have to do today, and digitalize this process, and enable you to simulate a fault directly from your smartphone and computer on any vehicle that you have available. So that's really our goal. Before I dive into more detail about how our technology works, let me give you a brief overview of our company. So our company is based in France. We have our head offices in Paris here, and our R&D offices in Le Mans, close to the famous racing track. We're currently present in 7 countries, so obviously the majority of our clients are in Europe today. But since this year, we also have clients in the US, and we are eager to add more to that. We work with OEMs and manufacturers across different verticals. So Renault and Nissan for passenger cars, Volvo trucks for heavy vehicles and trucks, KTM for motorcycles, and Rheinmetall MAN for the military sector. So we're active across different sectors and vehicle types. And obviously, we have numerous clients also from the educational space. So secondary and post-secondary organizations who are already using our technology for their courses. Now, what is KG all about? Essentially, our mission, our goal is to help you turn any vehicle into a training center. And we do that by enabling you to simulate a fault from your smartphone, from your computer on any vehicle. And when I say any vehicle, I mean any vehicle. So not just internal combustion engine vehicles, but also electrical and hybrids, light and heavy duty trucks, motorcycles, agricultural machines, construction machines, up to military. So a very versatile technology that can help you out in different training contexts and for different types of learners. Okay. Now, the main components of our technology you can see here on the screen. So it's the KG box and the KG app. The KG box is a universal fault simulator that you connect to the vehicle and that actually sets up the fault on the vehicle. And it does that by making the vehicle believe that there is a problem when there's actually none. So the KG box essentially manipulates the communication that's going on between a calculator, an ECU, and a system. So for example, an engine ECU and an engine, or an ABS ECU and the ABS. And it manipulates the signals that are traveling between these two to essentially make the ECU believe that there's a problem, okay? So this is what the KG box does. And then you have the KG app, which is an interface for you as the instructor to program the fault that you want to show on the vehicle. So it's an online software for you to configure the simulations that you want to run on the vehicle, and activate and deactivate the different simulations. And obviously the two communicate. So the KG app communicates with the KG box. Okay. Now, how does this all work in practice? First of all, we need to understand that KG is a technology in the service of the instructor. So the decisions around what's the best vehicle to use for what kind of training and what faults to show for this training, all of this remains your decision as the instructor. But when you start a session with KG, you can and should select the vehicles that you're using for your training and the simulation, the fault that you want to run on this vehicle. So this is what you enter in the software. You select your vehicle and you select your fault, and then this information gets sent to the KG box. And then the KG box executes that fault on the vehicle. The vehicle reacts and shows the same symptoms as with a real fault. Okay, so you're going to have DTCs that match that fault. You're going to see different values on your multimeter, on oscilloscope. So a very realistic scenario that enabled the learner to run through the full diagnostic process, starting from identifying the symptoms on their diagnostic tool, on their multimeter, etc., to forming a hypothesis, what could be the cause for this problem, and then taking measurements with multimeter, with oscilloscope, comparing these measurements with expected values, with manufacturer values, and then finalizing their analysis by comparing their values that they observed with the hypothesis and basically excluding or confirming hypothesis. So it's a very flexible technology that enables the learner to work through the complete diagnostic process in a safe environment and a very realistic environment. Okay. So that's a summary of how this works in practice. Now, if we look in more detail at the KG app, essentially it's a remote control for you, the instructor, to program the simulation that you want to run on the vehicle. So you can configure, activate, and deactivate the faults that you want the KG box to run on the vehicle. And all you need to use the KG app is a browser. So you can use it on your smartphone, your computer, your tablet. We even have clients who use it on a smart TV with a nice and big interface. All you do is you go on our website, you log in with your access details, and then you are good to run a simulation. The big advantage about the KG app is that you can save the scenarios, the faults that you run most frequently in the software. And we call this the playlist. So what many of our clients do is they get together at the start of the year. They discuss what vehicles they have available for what kind of training and what kind of bugs they want to show for these trainings. And then they store all of that in the playlist. So they basically save the scenarios that they want to show, and then all of the trainers have access to that. So the playlists are a way to share knowledge. Maybe you have an instructor who's more advanced on diesel engines. Maybe you have one that's more advanced on electric vehicles. They can all feed into the playlist, save the simulations, and then the rest of the team has access to that. So it's a way to share knowledge and also to guarantee consistent quality across all trainings. Okay, so that's a pretty big and a nice advantage of the KG app and the playlist. If we dive a bit more deep into the KG box, we already discussed that it's compatible with different vehicles, and it's also compatible with different ECUs. So not only the engine, which is what's most commonly used, but also ABS and brake systems, gearbox, body electric, suspension, ADAS systems. Again, a very universal and flexible technology that can help you in different training contexts. And for all these ECUs, you have four simulation types, 4 bug types that you can apply on all functions of the ECU. And you see them listed here. So it's open circuit and short circuit to ground, which is typical, right? Where you basically, if you activate the fault, you have no signal. If you deactivate the fault, you have a signal. So it's sort of a binary outcome for the learner. And then we have more advanced fault actions, which is voltage variation between 0 and 5 volts and PWM. So these are more advanced fault actions where you can actually play around with the values that the learner is going to observe on their diagnostic scope or their multimeter or the oscilloscope. Okay, so this goes beyond, do I have a signal or do I not have a signal, which you get with open circuit or short circuit, and actually pushes the learner to interpret the value that they're seeing. So I'm seeing 3 volts on my multimeter. Is this a correct value? What should be the healthy value? And then they need to understand what is the healthy, the manufacturer value that they should be seeing on the system versus what they have measured. So this is for more advanced scenarios and more advanced learners. And voltage variation, you would typically apply on sensors where you can say, change the output value of a sensor. For example, a temperature sensor, you can change the output voltage of that sensor and therefore communicate a different temperature to the ECU, right? And then you're going to see that on your diagnostic scope, and you're going to have all sorts of alerts and symptoms going with that different temperature. And the
Hey,
same thing,
George.
yes?
Hey, a quick comment. So actually, I was chatting with an instructor, a diesel instructor, 2 weeks back, and I showed him this slide, and he goes, "Yeah, that's true." He goes, "But actually, the number of ECUs for a truck is probably 50% greater." So, I mean, I was learning from him that actually there's even maybe more value or more opportunity to really leverage the KG system with the big trucks because there's just so many systems to connect.
That's absolutely true. So that matches my experience as well. Our truck use our technology on more ECUs than the passenger cars, and also the accessibility is more difficult for truck users. So at least here in Europe, for the European trucks, for example, if you want to get to the engine, you actually need to move the whole cabin to have access to the engine. So with our technology, you just plug in the KG box, and then they can sit in the cabin and activate the different faults without having to touch the engine. So also in terms of usability and ease of setting up a fault, there's a big benefit for our truck and heavy vehicle users from our technology. Absolutely. Yeah, so that's about the 4 simulation types. And you can basically activate them on all pins of the ECU. So on an average ECU, you have about 150 to 200 pins. Multiply that by 4, and that's about the different options in terms of fault scenarios that you can create with our technology. Right? So the KG app and the KG box are only 2 products of our full product suits. We also offer the KG terminals, which is an interface for the learner to take measurements via multimeter and oscilloscope. Okay, this is basically replicating the connection at the ECU, at the calculator, and it enables the learner to take measurements without having to puncture and damage the cabling of the vehicle itself. So again, it's a safe environment to take measurements and replicates essentially the measurements that the learner would take directly on the vehicle. And then we also provide the KG auto cables, which are the connection cables to connect the KG box to your vehicle. And we provide the right cables for your vehicle. So that's part of our solution. Essentially, when you start working with us, you tell us which cables you need, and we'll provide them to you. Now, the goal and the benefit of all of this is to help you do more with less effort. And that also includes saving costs. So saving hours and work hours for you, and also costs around components and parts that you need to buy when you're bugging your vehicles manually. All of this is saved because you're not even damaging the vehicle, right? What many of our users are also telling us is that our solution is very useful when it comes to creating a new training or creating a new fault. For example, you're getting a new vehicle for your for a course, and you have to set it up for your diagnostic training. So typically what a trainer does, they will look at the documentation, they will look at the wiring diagram, and they will come up with some ideas of what they could simulate and how they could simulate something on this vehicle. And then they will spend 1, 2, 3 days setting up this fault manually on the vehicle. And then they test what they've set up on the vehicle. And more often than not, unfortunately, this can be a disappointing experience because they test the fault that they've set up and the vehicle doesn't show any reaction or not enough reaction, not enough of the symptoms that they would like to see. So that's a very frustrating experience for a trainer, having spent all this time setting up the fault on the vehicle and that not having the symptoms that they need for their training. With us, with our technology, this process becomes much quicker. So testing your idea and going through these iterations is much quicker with our solution. You can essentially program something in the KG app, set up some parameters, test these parameters, and if the vehicle doesn't show all the symptoms that you need, you adjust the parameters and run it again and see if now it's better. So basically, this process of coming to the scenario that shows all of your symptoms is much quicker and hassle-free, right? Third point here, we already touched upon this. You can save your scenarios in the software. So on the day of the training, you arrive with a KG app, you click play because you have saved the scenario already in the software, and you're good to do your training. So our technology also helps you to automate your workflow and make this much more much quicker for you guys. Okay. Big point here as well is you can run scenarios on multiple vehicles at the same time, right? So from one KG box, you can from one KG app, you can control multiple KG boxes at the same time. So we have clients who use this in an exam context, for example. They have multiple stations, one vehicle per station and one group per vehicle. And they can program different faults per vehicle and then activate, deactivate these faults. So basically, they can control multiple vehicles at the same time and activate different faults on each vehicle, basically in line with the progress of the learner. So this is a nice way to really provide a dynamic and responsive way of training and managing a group that's working at the same time on several vehicles and keeping everybody entertained, basically, even if you have some people who are more advanced and some who are more sort of need more time to work on a certain problem. So very nice way to provide a very dynamic training for your learners. Last point here on the slide, remote training. So this is a topic that has become obviously much more has received much more interest from our clients since COVID. Our remote training is possible with our technology, and essentially so you can have the trainer in a different location than the learner. So the trainer could be, for example, in the training center, the learner in a different location, for example, a dealership, with a vehicle and the KG box. The two communicate like we do today via Zoom, and the trainer can remotely control what the KG box does on the vehicle and the scenario that are activated on the vehicle. So this is an option. I don't know if this is useful for your context. We also have clients who travel with the KG box, travel to a training site, put the KG box in their vehicle, travel there, hook it up to a training vehicle, run the training, and then leave. So this is also an option that's very convenient with our technology, much as using our technology on a loaned vehicle, because essentially the KG box doesn't leave any damage on the vehicle and doesn't have any impact on the warranty. So these are several innovative applications for your training, which are all possible with our technology.
So are there safety parameters set in? Because I mean, you had mentioned that we as an instructor would create the actual task, create the scenario. But if you're doing it incorrectly, you might fry an ECU, for instance. Are there safety parameters put into place? Because then it wouldn't go back without damage.
So basically, that's another reason why we have implemented the playlist. So we have different user levels. We have the account admins, which can basically create the playlist and add to the playlists. And these are more senior and more advanced users, which are basically can be trusted to set up simulations that are safe and that will not damage the vehicle. And then we have users with less user rights, few user rights, which can basically just execute those scenarios. So the system itself is very flexible and doesn't have any limitations in terms of what you can program. But with these different user levels, you can basically ensure that less experienced users who run a risk of damaging a vehicle don't have all the functionality available and basically operate in the safe and limited environment.
Gotcha.
Yeah. George, another question that Dave asked, is CAN bus supported by the app?
Yeah, you can also work on CAN bus lines that run on the ECU. We don't interfere or work on the software side of the vehicle. So you're not going to reprogram anything that's running on the CAN bus, but you can apply these four fault actions on the CAN high and the CAN low. Definitely, yes.
Yeah, that was a question I had last time, George, was, does the KG system interface with the software on the vehicle? And you just addressed that it does not.
Yeah, we don't connect to the OBD2 socket. This remains available for the diagnostic scope of the learner. We really work between the ECU and the engine, so not in the software, because essentially that's proprietary to the manufacturer and basically confidential information. Yeah. You have any questions before?
Yeah, and another good question. A couple questions from Dave. And Dave, yeah, I'll be happy to share cost information with you guys. I'll kind of give you a round number. So loosely, the variable here is there's two variables. One would be, how long of a subscription are you getting? 3-year, 5-year? That'll determine the cost drops down with a longer term subscription, of course. And the other thing is there's a little variability in the cost per manufacturer. So a Toyota versus a GM might have a little different cable cost. So the price varies a little bit there. But loosely, if you're going to get a KG system, with a 3-year subscription, the average cost it's going to be well under $20,000 for the school to kind of use this system for numerous vehicles.
The subscription, just to clarify, is for the KG app. So you will buy the KG box, the KG terminals, and the KG auto cables. It's so basically these four, and the KG app has a subscription. Okay, so depending if you have multiple years or just 1 year, the price of the subscription varies. With the KG app, you have unlimited users and unlimited vehicles. So basically, if you during your subscription while your subscription is valid, and you get a new vehicle, you tell us, and we set it up in the app. So basically, what's part of subscription is also that we set up your vehicles in the app, which means we import the information from the wiring diagram. So when you set up a new scenario, a new simulation, you don't have to work out how this simulation works. You basically say, I want to work on the accelerator position sensor or the throttle sensor, and I want to set it to ground. And then the system does the rest and knows which pin is actually involved here. So this means that you can easily transport one simulation from one vehicle to the next vehicle, because the system essentially knows the difference of the pinning between the different vehicles. So that's the work we do behind the KG app.
Yeah, just a little more background for everyone's benefit. So I'm not an automotive expert, trust me. farm boy, but not an automotive educator. So George actually helped me get set up with my vehicle so I could demonstrate KG. And yeah, the system was delivered to me, already had my vehicle loaded onto it. And then George and his team walked me through basically the simulation. I actually did the accelerator pedal simulation for mine. And I know it's 1054. I know kind of basically how to hook the system up. And it was really turnkey. The touchscreen on the box made it really nice to move quickly through the setup process. So for a non-automotive guy, I picked it up pretty quick. So it's a really nice system. I don't see any other questions at this time. We've covered most of them, George. Oh, I'm sorry, there was one more. There was a question. Well, actually, the warranty thing you covered that. There was a question about, should they worry about, disrupting the warranty? But as you mentioned, since we hijacked the signal, the work that you do with the KG fault simulations does not impact, the vehicle's warranty at all. So we're kind of working outside of the system through the hijacked cables where we kind of connect to the ECU and the engine.
Yeah, so we connect on existing connections. We basically open the connectors on the ECU, plug our cables in between, and then plug the KG box in there. So there's no damage to any components of the vehicle, any cabling whatsoever. So that's how the warranty stays intact. So before and after our simulation, the vehicle is completely healthy, and that's basically what me or David have done for the demos. So we always leave with a very healthy vehicle afterwards.
Two more questions quick came in, George. One was around just the application to electric vehicles and hybrids, and also just, is it, you mentioned all cars, but there's got to be a limit. They were asking basically how far back. So maybe if you could speak briefly to the application to EVs and hybrids, and then also, we're not the Model T, but how far back can we go?
So how far back? Basically, as long as you have an ECU, you can work with it. Uh, the maybe the more important challenges in terms of availability of those connectors, whether they are still being produced or whether they're still somewhere, how we can find them or not. But generally, we have already had clients from the early 2000s with vehicles from the early 2000s, and we were able to provide them with the necessary connectors here. So that's in practice. I don't know if you guys have older vehicles, but generally that is not a big constraint for our technology. In terms of hybrid and electric vehicles, this is sort of a growing area, which is where basically everybody is gaining more and more experience of what to do on these vehicles. Obviously, hybrid vehicles, you have the whole combustion engine where you can simulate. You also have basically on the battery management. When do I draw battery out? When do I feed into the battery? And when do I use the battery that I have in the vehicle? So that's an area where you can apply it. And the same is for electric vehicles. So the battery management systems, the sensors there are an area where our users are using this technology as much as, even because this is something that frequently happens in practice, bad contacts on the charging of the vehicle. So these are some applications, but this is basically the library of applications is still growing as people start to use our technology on electric vehicles. So we'll have more and more applications in the future.
I know you're going to give us a quick little demo
Yes.
review. So there were any more questions, guys, please feel free to post them on chat and we'll come back after George gives a little tour of the system.
So here we see our system in practice. I'll click play here. Basically, we are connected here on the engine ECU of the vehicle with the KG auto cables. We see here the KG box, the KG terminals with and the KG app. On the KG terminals, you see these masks that we put here, and basically they follow the terminology of the wiring diagram for this vehicle to help the learner identify the different pins more quickly, so they can basically use a multimeter and oscilloscope on different pins to deep dive in their analysis and take measurements. We have here the KG box with the touchscreen. David mentioned this before. So this is on one hand to connect, helps you connect to the KG box to the internet, and also helps you operate the KG box if you don't have an internet connection. So this is a backup plan basically where you are able to simulate a fault without the KG app locally on the KG box if you ever are in a situation where you don't have an internet connection available. So you'll have a number of or a more limited number of functionalities here, but essentially when it just comes to simulating a fault, you can still program that locally on the KG box without an internet connection. And then we see here the KG auto cables. As I said, we're connected between the ECU and the engine. And we see that we have on both sides the option here and the same on the other side to connect the KG terminals for measurement. So you can measure on the ECU side and on the engine side, depending what type of signal you're working with, if it's a sensor signal going to the ECU, or if it's an actuator signal, for example, going from the ECU to the actuator. And here in the middle is where we connect the KG box and where essentially the fault is set. What's important to understand about the different products is they can be used modularly. Okay, so you can use one product without the other. We can, for example, just use the terminals, the cables, and not connect the other products. Leave the cables connected. The big advantage of that is that you are not basically damaging the original automotive connectors of the vehicle. Unfortunately, these automotive connectors are not made for loads and loads of connections and deconnections. And so leaving our cables connected is the safer option. Our connectors in the middle are made for thousands of connections and deconnections. So they are much more robust than the original connectors by the manufacturers. And so that's why we recommend you leave the cables connected. And then you can leave them connected. The car will work perfectly fine. And you can do another training, which is about a different subject. The advantage about the terminals is also that you can use them on multiple models of the same vehicle, of the same brand. So you will have one set for GM, one set for Stellantis, and one set for Ford, and they will work on different models of those brands. Okay, so typically you will have one set for per brand and can use them on multiple models. Yeah, and then basically you could connect the KG auto cables. Then you can add the KG terminals and run a training which is just about measurements, taking measurements with multimeter oscilloscope without having a fault, but basically teaching your learners how to properly take measurements on the vehicle. And then in the last step, you can add the KG box and the KG app to actually insert a fault in the vehicle and have your learner work through that whole diagnostic process. So as I said, it's a modular system where you can plug and play the different components of the system in line with your training need, whether it's just, taking measurements or also fault finding. Now, what we're going to do now is basically we're going to see an example of a simulation on this vehicle, and we're going to be working here on the accelerator pedal position, which we mentioned before. Here we see a diagnostic scope, a diagnostic tool, which is not part of our solution. It's basically a multi-brand tool just to show you a bit of the symptoms that we can produce with this fault. And we've here taken out the two sensor signals from the accelerator of this vehicle. And we can see when we're not accelerating, the two sensors are around 16%. And when we are accelerating, they both react, they both absorb the charge. And basically now we are before the fault. So we don't have any notifications on the dashboard. Everything is fine. The vehicle is healthy. Okay. What we're going to do now is we're going to activate our fault, and this is a simple open circuit on this line on the accelerator, the first accelerator signal. So we're going to turn the switch to green, click on the green button at the bottom, update session. Now the signal is sent to the KG box, and the KG box has activated this fault, and we see here control injection on the dashboard. And on our diagnostic scope, we see that the first scanner, the first sensor is at 0%. Okay, so we've completely cut the signal of this first sensor, and we see that only the second sensor is actually reacting when I step on the accelerator. And we don't have the sound now, but basically the engine doesn't roar up anymore. Okay, there's no noise happening when I accelerate. Okay. So this is the scenario when I've activated it, and now we're going to deactivate this fault on the vehicle. Again, we move here to gray, and then we click on the green button at the bottom to update our session. This gets sent to the KG box, and now the KG box has deactivated this fault on the vehicle. The notification is off, and I'm seeing my values are back to normal. So I'm again at 16% without acceleration. And when I accelerate, the two react together. So everything is healthy again. I have deactivated the fault on my vehicle without touching anything, just from my computer. And the learner didn't even see that I did anything. So this is just a simple scenario to show you how to work with our technology in practice and how quickly and easily you can activate and deactivate a scenario. Okay. Do you have any more questions, David?
Nothing else came through. There is one. I'm sorry. Well, two things. One, yeah, the question was around any student data captured. Yeah, currently there's no student data. I know there's concerns about that. There's no student data capture currently by the KG system, correct?
No. Basically, today the main user for the system is the instructor who sets up the fault. So there's no personal data whatsoever taken from the students.
Right.
I think there's
And
more
yet,
questions. Sorry.
the other question was Eric. Yeah, asking about the cost. So I think the subscription cost after. So just to kind of recap, so there's the four components of the KG system. There's the KG box. That's basically where you send the program simulations to the vehicle. There's the KG terminals, basically the fault box you can use to kind of test the signals. There are the cables, and those are designed for your vehicle. And those are the three physical elements. And the fourth item is the software, the app, the KG app. And I think Eric's question is around, we talked about, if it's a 1 year, 3 year, 5 year, 10 year subscription, whatever you choose to get. Yeah, if let's say you get a 3 year and you want to go 1 more year or another 3 year deal, yeah, it would depend upon, how long you chose. But it varies, but it's under 2,000 per year. I think it's actually around 14 per year for a 1 year, but it gets even lower if you are doing multi-year.
Exactly. There's a discount for multiple years.
Yep.
So the longer you take it, the cheaper it is. But if you just take 1 year, it's 1,400. I think that's the price.
Yeah. And one of the things which I'll do for everyone is, as a follow-up, I'll send you a copy of the recording, as some of the folks arrived a little late. So you can catch all that, along with a link that you can feel free to reach out to me or your sales rep. Happy to talk with you specifically about your situation, your vehicle, and we can give you more precise pricing once we know what vehicle you have, whether it's a Ford, a GM, a Toyota, a Nissan. We can quickly get you what would your cost be to get that system in place at your school. So any other questions from anybody? Now is a great time. Come off mute or post them in chat. I know we've kept you late, George. Thank you so much. Is there a comprehensive package for the schools to look over? And I think Stephen, feel free to come off. You're basically the KG bundle, which is those four components: the box, the KG box, the KG terminals, the KG cables, and the KG app. all those elements come as one bundled price, one bundled package, and that's delivered to you, and then we'll provide training to you on that package for your program. So yeah, that's the bundle I think you're referencing that we would kind of suggest.
Yeah,
Yeah.
like a written literature package that we could show
Oh,
to
I'm sorry.
our admin, so we can kind of, look over it, and then yeah, of course, then based on whatever our cars are, sure, then the packages might be different costs. I did come in late, so I didn't get some of that information, so I apologize.
No, thank you. And George, I'll let you add on to this, but a couple things. One, when adopted, there's a very comprehensive user's manual that walks you through the usage and some practical exercises around the use of the KG system. And from a pre-sale perspective, there's a number of items I can provide, from a flyer that talks through the benefits and the features in detail. And so if either one of those, probably the latter, the brochure that talks about the features and benefits, what you want to provide to your administrators is my guess. And then once you guys adopt the user's manual, which is a little more comprehensive, would provide all the details and handholding along the way. George, would you add to that, or?
Yeah, so I mean, we have, obviously we can share with you the presentation that we showed today, the videos. We have a couple of videos which I think help you understand the system better. And then we have a whole brochure with some more technical specification and all of that. And obviously, if that helps your purposes, we can also send you the user manual where you have more practical information in terms of connecting and everything. So no problem sending you all of this over if that's relevant for you. Absolutely.
Question, Stephen. And one more thing, just of note. So the KG system as a fault simulation system was actually chosen at EuroSkills, which is the version of Skills USA over in Europe, and it was used as the system through which the contestants competed in a variety of contests over in EuroSkills. And there are two states, even though we just started to kind of present this, two states in the U.S. at the state level that are looking and considering KG in the same vein to use as the system, because it can provide consistent setups and simulations for student or contestant, which is really attractive, as opposed to manually setting the faults. You might set it differently for this person versus that person. So I think the consistency of the KG system and the quickness with which you could do that really appealed to at least the skills folks here in the States.
Yeah, no, I mean the quickness was a big advantage for the guys here in Europe because they're quite challenged in terms of the time of preparation that they have for this. They have just maybe 2 days to set up all these faults, and so with our technology, they could really shorten that time and get to very complex scenarios very quickly, more quickly than they could have done in their traditional manual process. So that's what they really appreciate about our solution.
Any other questions, folks, before we let you?
I would like to ask just a few clarification questions, if that's okay.
Absolutely.
So the first one would be, when you use this, let's say you have more advanced levels, so do you have to test at the KG terminal box, or can you do the testing, say, on an accelerator pedal position sensor on the vehicle? So can a student go in with a digital multimeter and read the terminals at the vehicle?
Yes, you can still do it at the vehicle. The one clarification I want to do on this, if you test it on the component itself, you will not have a fault because essentially the fault is after the component, right? So that's where you're gonna find the fault. But definitely we have clients who don't use the terminals, who take measurements without directly on the vehicle or on their own terminals that they have, and that works for them as well. So definitely that's possible. Yeah.
Okay, and then once a learning institution purchases one of these, if they then want to do different vehicles, the additional cost would just be the cable sets. Am I correct?
Absolutely. It might not even be necessary if they use the same brand. They can very likely use the same cables that they already have. But if they have a vehicle from a different brand, then yes, the only thing that they would have to buy in on top of that is different cables. Yes.
Okay, because most at least high schools are going to have variable cars. They're not going to have multiples of the same cars. It's very rare for that to happen.
No, I'm saying the same brand.
same brand.
Yeah. So
And
basically,
again, same thing. It doesn't usually happen. Usually you've gotten a variety, but so it's just the cost of the cables. That's why I was
yes,
trying to find out
exactly.
about that. Okay.
I got lucky. I had 4 Ford vehicles donated. They fell off a train. So Ford F-150s, like 2023s, and then 4 Ford Transit vans, 2023s. And so I could use the same connector for all 8 of those vehicles.
Mhm.
But again, that's like Mark was saying, that is not a scenario that's very common. So that's just kind of lucky that I could purchase this and it could be used on 8 different
That is
vehicles for
great.
one
That is
cost.
great.
Yeah.
Another question I had was, so after the 3 years, if I make a, initial cost to purchase it, and it's not a rental system, it is a outright purchase.
Yes.
We're only paying for the membership so we could use the app.
Yes.
Does that mean that the box is useless if we're not paying for the monthly or the yearly subscription to the app after that? There's no
No.
access to it.
So you, as I said before, you can basically still use the box and locally on the touchscreen program a simulation. That will still be possible. You
Okay.
will lose the functionality of the software with, saving your scenarios and playlists and all of that. So it's not as nice and easy, but it's still possible to use the box afterwards. Definitely.
Okay.
Yeah, it was a good point to remind. I go to colleges and high schools, and the colleges are a little more blessed. They'll typically work near a Honda or a GM or a Ford plant, and they'll typically have a relationship, and they'll get a fair number of those vehicles. Via high schools rely upon donations, and they can't be picky sometimes. So, nice fortune on your side, Eric, that the the train went off the rails.
Literally.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, anything else? Questions, guys, for George? This is really great. I'm learning a lot. Okay. So as one final recap, I will send everybody on this call a link to the recording in case you missed parts of it. Also, inspired by Stephen, I'll also include some documentation in case you want to kind of look through that and to share with your administration. It'll be guidance and helpful. And if you want more than that, please reach out to me directly. Happy to help you with that. And certainly beyond today, there's local sales organizations for all of the U.S. to provide additional guidance or bring in myself or other members of the team, and we're here to help you guys learn more about KG and how it might work in your system. George, I'll give you the final word.
Yeah, no, my final word is basically if this is interesting for you guys, the really next step would be to send us some pictures of the ECU connectors that you have on your vehicles. So basically we know what connectors you need, and then we can send you a quote for you that is aligned with your vehicles and take this further. So that will be sort of the next step, getting the photos of your connectors and sending you a quote. Yeah.
Very good, George.
VIN numbers be better?
VIN number is also possible. Yes, you can also send us that.
Yeah, I'll send you guys a link that we have on our website. It makes it really easy, I think. We're basically some very basic vehicle information, VIN, like Stephen mentioned, and then a picture of the male and female connectors of your ECU, just to make sure we're designing the exact right cables for your vehicle. It doesn't take long to gather that information. Then we'll give you an exact, look at what it would take for your school to have the program. So happy to help you guys with that along the way. Beyond today, give me a call, give me an email. We're here to help you guys. Yes, Eric.
Does the app include any kind of other service information? Like, does it have something that the students can use to like look at the wiring diagram, to do other things, or is that just going to be a secondary service that we're going to, I'm just asking if this app is inclusive to other things so that maybe I can drop some of my other subscriptions because this is including it. Is there anything like that?
So we don't include the wiring diagrams themselves to show you that, but basically we'll have more functionalities for the students in the future. So basically where they can then work through an example themselves, get a result and all of that. So there's going to be continuous development on the app side, and we'll have more functionalities launched start of next year and going forward. So there will be news and new functionalities on the app, which can add to the value of the subscription.
All right. George, thanks for making time. You're a few hours ahead of us over there in lovely Paris. Everybody else, thanks for making time for us today. Any questions? Give me a call. Thanks, everybody, for your time.
Thank you, guys. Thank you for your time.
Thank you.